committee hearing on Family, Seniors, and Health. We're going to now call the committee to order. Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Senator Carter.
Here.
Senator Nicola.
Here.
Senator Hudson.
Here.
Senator Lewis. Senator Moon. Senator Nuremberg.
We've established a quorum and we'll begin our hearing. We are going to begin with Senate Bill 54. Our committee hearing has 3 very large bills to be heard today, and so we are going to limit our time in testimony for 2 minutes per group, 2 minutes per witness, for and against. We're going to listen to all of those in favor of the bill at this point, and then we will listen to those who are opposed, but again, limit to 2 minutes just to save time. Those who have traveled a long distance, we would like to give deference to them since they've traveled so far, so just be cognizant of that as we proceed through the hearing. All right. Senator Schroer is not here yet. Okay. If you do plan on testifying, can you make sure that you fill out a witness form prior? Maybe take advantage of these few minutes before we begin.
I texted his chief of staff to see if he was on his way.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so did that. And then
He was going to be first.
we talked last night.
Okay, good.
So this is motion to adjourn. Heidi? This is motion to adjourn, so we're just gonna go through this process right here.
Yes.
And then motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So we did this, and we're gonna go through this part, and then you're gonna come back to this if I'm not here. But I should be. Okay, we're waiting. We'll wait. All right, he's on his way, so we will wait. Yes. Yep, so then you'll just go through Senate Bill 45. Any questions for the senator? That concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 54. We'll now hear Senate Bill 45. Senator, I think it's Travis.
Another thing you could do to help control the crowd is have them once they've testified, move in the room so that other people can wait to testify.
Okay. So we've been asked that if you, just to be able to clear the room and give opportunity for those who may be out in the hall to testify, if you do testify, go ahead and exit the room. That frees up space in the hearing room for those who are maybe out in the hall waiting. So Fitzwater and, yes. All right, you're on, Senator. Just please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sorry for the delay. I had to gavel in to Judiciary upstairs. For the record, Nick Schroer, State Senate District 2, presenting Senate Bill 54. As stated last year, this legislation is aimed at regulating intoxicating cannabinoids, consistent with the framework that Missourians have already approved in our Constitution. This bill is a response to the growing concerns surrounding the safety, accessibility, and regulation of intoxicating products made with the THC stripped from hemp. As we are aware, the landscape of cannabinoid products has drastically evolved since the passage of the Farm Bill in 2018, which removed hemp from the list of controlled substances. This change has led to an influx of intoxicating cannabis products derived from hemp currently sold without the stringent oversight that governs traditional marijuana products. These products, accessible in our convenience stores, gas stations, and even online, are being sold to kids. They have raised significant public health and safety concerns, particularly regarding their availability to minors and the lack of testing for potency and contaminants. Senate Bill 54, also known as the Intoxicating Cannabinoid Control Act, the ICC We aim to prevent these products being sold to those under 21, mirroring the exact same language and protections which we have in place for other vices like alcohol and tobacco. Number 3, consumer safety. The bill mandates rigorous testing for THC content, ensuring that consumers are fully aware of what they are purchasing. This is crucial in preventing accidental overconsumption, which has been a growing concern, especially those unaware of the product's potency. Number 4, market integrity. By establishing these regulations, we aim to maintain the integrity and expansion of both the hemp and marijuana markets, fostering trust in the industries while protecting consumers from unscrupulous practices. And number 5, data privacy. Additionally, Senate Bill 54 strengthens privacy protections of marijuana consumers by prohibiting the sharing of personal data with unauthorized third parties, including federal agencies, thereby safeguarding their rights and privacy, especially when it comes to Missourian Second Amendment rights. The introduction of this bill comes at a critical time when we must balance innovation and safety. We've heard in the past and will again today from numerous stakeholders, including health officials, law enforcement, and industry representatives who have all come together. Can't even get my notes right. Underscoring the necessity for the regulation. You'll hear today from the Missouri Poison Center, or Poison Control, that they have reported an alarming increase in children being exposed to these harmful and unregulated products, highlighting the urgency of our action. In conclusion, I urge my colleagues today to support Senate Bill 54, not only as a step toward consumer safety, but as a commitment to the well-being of all Missourians. Let's lead by example in how we manage these challenges in our state's evolving legal and health landscape. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. From the committee, is there any questions for the senator?
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. Senator, would you speak to possibly carving out the low THC drinks?
Yeah, so there was, I want to say, some momentum last year, towards the end of last year, discussing with some of the hemp producers, maybe a carve out using existing regulatory framework in combination of ATC and the Department of Health and Senior Services to figure a way to ensure it's not being sold to kids, to make sure that what is out there, our state can come in and do safety protocols and consumer protections. So there is some language out there that we're discussing on the House side and the Senate side to kind of carve out these low dose drinks, probably 5 milligrams. Met with many different stakeholders over the interim, even last week, discussing possible language to put into a sub. So it's very likely that before this bill comes out for a vote, which could be next week, could be several weeks from now, it's up to the chair, but we will more than likely have some sort of compromise language to use that existing framework with ATC on some of these low dose products.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions for the senator from the committee?
I'm surprised Senator Moon's always got good questions for me.
That's great. With no more questions from the senator, we'll now take questions from the public. For those who are for this amendment,
good morning. This is Tom Robbins for Mocan Trade, very much in support of Senate Bill 54, the Intoxicating Cannabinoid Control Act. So as Senator Schroer alluded to, the ICCA is designed to address the proliferation of these hemp-synthesized intoxicants that have spread across shelves at retailers in every imaginable spot. These products have, and then in so doing, have allowed, as Senator Schroer alluded to, children at times to access it, whereas in the licensed regulated dispensaries, there's no one under 21 allowed. So these products followed the passage of the 2018 Federal Farm Bill, where Congress wisely chose to deregulate industrial hemp because it's non-intoxicating. They just chose a faulty threshold with limited science. It said 0.3% delta 9 THC by dry weight, when in fact there's a whole universe of other intoxicating deltas. So enter the ICCA, which aligns with Congress's original intent, and it says if the compound comes from the cannabis plant and is intoxicating, it's marijuana, it should be regulated as such. If the compound comes from the cannabis plant and is non-intoxicating, it is industrial hemp, and is and should be deregulated pursuant to the 2018 Farm Bill. To get to your question, that's what, the meat of what our bill does. But yes, we are working through and very excited about the possibility of developing a carve out for low THC hemp drinks that wouldn't require chemical conversion, would have a max per can of 5 milligrams and a max, I believe, of 4 per package. So you could buy 4 packs. We think that this gives the many of these interested parties a path to participate. So obviously the distributors benefit from wider distribution. The C-stores, as they have liquor licenses, would be empowered to sell these because that would be all you need. And then finally, as to the smoke shops, they could fairly be classified as a tobacco or general merchandise shop, and therefore possibly also get a liquor license, so that everybody wins in this regard.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Time's up.
Any questions?
Have any questions from the committee?
Nope. Oh, yeah,
Senator
all
Moon.
right. Here we go.
It may not be as tough as you expected. We've had several discussions over the last year about this particular issue, and I find it interesting that your support and the opposition both have pretty good arguments. One of the central themes is the access by children, and so I know there have probably been some discussions, because I've seen some of the merging of the differences even today with regard to what can be offered by the C-stores. But is there a way, you prompted another thought, since we certainly don't want children to access something that could be harmful to them, is it possible for these stores that sell them currently to put them in a location that could not be accessed by the children?
Yeah, it's a good question. Anything other than a drink would fall to basically DHSS, which, given the fact that the Article 14 creates a closed system on the cannabis side, you can't like sell in and outside the system. You would have to create a duplicate parallel bureaucracy within DHSS to regulate functionally the same product. So you would have DCR and somewhere else under DHSS's umbrella. One side doing the highly regulated on the natural, and then we're not sure what that would exist on the synthetic side. But that's, as a Republican supermajority, that's growing government in grotesque ways.
So I think you hit one of the key elements there is to the synthesized products, because the Article 14 talks primarily about marijuana, and this includes the hemp. So that's where I think there's a dividing line, and I'm trying to understand, unless it's the synthesized portion, why the regulation?
Well, because I could gather water, hops, and barley, but once I process it into ethyl alcohol, it requires a license. So this, under your scenario, would be an on your honor system. That there would be no license to compel compliance, and if you were to develop a duplicate parallel path, it would be incredibly expensive.
Now, I don't do this, but since you mentioned the hops and the barley, I could do that myself without regulation. Would that be right?
Well, I don't. There are members of the alcohol industry here, and they've all forgotten more about the 3-tier system than I know. So I don't want to start wandering around in that area.
I'm just talking about for personal use. If I were to consume it, I could do that myself and brew whatever at home and stay outside those systems.
Well, I don't think law enforcement would like for me to talk for them either, but it sounds right.
Well, we don't do moonshining. I mean, it's legal now, I think.
I think the issue becomes whenever you start selling it for commercially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We're on the same line there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Maybe I'll have more later.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, thank you so much, Mr. Robbins. I want to
Thank
remind
you.
everybody, too, that to turn in your witness forms, and we are very, very tight on time, so please stick to the 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. My name is Alec Rosenblum. I'm a registered lobbyist for Missouri Cannabis Trade Association and a lawyer at Rosenblum Robbins. I intend to keep my remarks today limited to focusing on the congressional record related to the 2018 Farm Bill. The reason the record is important is because opponents of this bill will claim that these products are federally authorized. I believe that position is, at best, an unintended result of poor drafting, an overly broad definition, and I think, more accurately, a deliberate mischaracterization of the law. The 2018 Farm Bill never intended to legalize intoxicating substances for human consumption. It sought to legalize hemp for agricultural and industrial uses, hemp fiber, rope, feed, and non-intoxicating cannabinoids like CBD. I think it's important to remember that hemp and marijuana are political designations for the same plant. Cannabis sativa L, as Tom alluded to, the definition 0.3 delta 9 THC by dry weight, that was a threshold set by Congress intending to distinguish non-intoxicating from intoxicating cannabis. This is a bipartisan stance, and this is explicitly and clearly demonstrated in the congressional record. So now I'll read some quotes. Senator Mitch McConnell: outdated federal regulations don't sufficiently distinguish this industrial crop from its illicit cousin. He goes on. Because hemp only has negligible levels of THC, which is the compound that produces the high associated with marijuana, the two plants are actually quite different. This legislation only legalizes hemp with a THC concentration of 0.3% or less, far below the THC concentration in marijuana. Senator Mark Warner and Senator Tim Kaine: hemp is distinct from marijuana in that it has minuscule concentration of THC and thus no narcotic capability. Representative Griffith: hemp cultivated for industrial use lacks the potency of marijuana. Bernadette Green: non-narcotic industrial hemp makes our economy stronger by providing an additional revenue stream for farmers. Again, non-narcotic industrial hemp.
2 minutes is up, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. How many people are here that want to speak in favor? Can you raise your hand kind of high? Okay, can we have the next person? How much time? Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Nico Pinto, here on behalf of Elevate Cannabis. We are a Kansas City-based multi-state operator. We operate in 3 states in the legal cannabis space. I myself also work with a number of different state and federal trade associations on this specific issue that we have in front of you today. Thank you, Senator Schroer, for bringing this bill, and thank you, members of the committee, for taking the time to hear this important piece of public policy. I'll be very quick because I know we have a lot of people here in the room. I just want to get on record that these conversations that we're having here in Missouri are not novel. This is a conversation that's taking place in all 50 states, both with legal cannabis markets and without legal cannabis markets. The compromise that we spoke of this morning, that you heard with the low THC beverages, is starting to be the trend that we are seeing in all 50 states. So, again, this is something that I think garners strong consideration by you, the members of the committee. As you heard before, we're placed in this conundrum because of poor drafting at the federal level. That is also something that is being taken up in Congress. I have meetings on the Hill quite regularly about this same specific issue. That being said, I would not suggest waiting on Congress to close this loophole, because we all know how quickly the wheels of government turn at the federal level. I think you have a chance here this year to address this significant public policy oversight, and I believe that Senator Schroer's bill and the proposed amendment that would be forthcoming would do just that, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none, we're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have the next witness for favor of the bill.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name's Julie Weber, and I'm the director of the Missouri Poison Center at SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. And I'm here today to speak about our concerns that continue with this product and with this product not being regulated. What we have seen is an ever increasing amount of exposures to the products, especially in children. About 46% of our cases have been on children getting into these products due to accessibility. They look like products that are to eat, and they don't read or can't read the labels. These products are even brought into the home, and there's no differentiation between an edible and what's candy in their eyes who cannot read. The products contain, really, we do not know because it's not regulated. And that's where we've come into some very serious exposures where children have ended up unresponsive and on ventilators due to the other ingredients when these products are synthesized. It can be from maybe an impure product, but what happens is these derivatives can be stronger, can be actually adulterated with things we don't even know in there, and it's really about the safety for them. So what we're concerned with is that we've seen pretty much last year in 2024 over 718 exposures of all ages of people with the different cannabis and minor cannabinoids, as we call the intoxicating cannabinoids. So with that, again, 46% were in the children. And again, it was due to mostly edible products that they don't know that can harm them. I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, it's about the safety and the regulation of finding out what's in these and getting it on the label so we can actually even help them when they call us.
Thank you very much. May I get a copy of any of the
Yes,
data that
I
you have,
have.
please?
Yeah.
Thank you very
I
much.
put it with my form, but I also have a copy here if you
Great.
like.
I appreciate that. Any questions from Senator Nurban?
Okay, I have a couple questions for you in terms of assessing whether a minor has ingested a marijuana gummy or some sort of derived cannabinoid. And is there any way for you all to know with testing?
So that is true. So it's difficult when we're on the hotline to assess the cannabis products that are regulated and those that are not, but the majority are going to be on edibles. And so I don't even think we're seeing the tip of the icebergs because parents are concerned about calling. They're looking for us, which is good. We're non-judgmental on it. But how we ask the question, and if they know that, we're able to get the names of the product and determine. But often it's really things that have been sold, and we've had further help to understand. There's in the regulated cannabis, they're not looking like gummies or lifesavers or some kind of candy product. And that's what's attracting the children. And they're able to, what we're seeing even in adolescents getting into it, that has increased as well, is they can just go into a gas station and purchase these products thinking it could possibly be candy or something good, and it's actually contaminated with nothing regulated. They can be very strong, or they can be other active, actually chemical or pharmaceutical ingredients in the products.
Okay, so again, just clarifying. So right now, with the change in how marijuana has to be packaged and marketed and not having all the color schemes and truly looking like a Skittle or a Starburst or a gummy bear or whatever, right? Those are some of the things that we're trying to rein in just so that it's not mistaken as that it is something that's intoxicating versus candy. And so you're saying in terms of poison control, it's a huge issue that's increased since the legalization of marijuana or since has this thing?
I think it's a little of both.
Okay.
I think we're seeing both. We've been watching it since it started in 2015 with accessibility, even on bordering states. What we are seeing, it's what it looks like in the edible products, like if it looks like a gummy bear. And the packaging is very important, and these packaging are not child resistant. What we really preach is accessibility, getting products locked, keeping them in the original containers. And that does help bring it down. But when they start looking like the Nerds robes, the different lifesavers, and the packaging is very colorful and attractive, that does too cause a problem.
Okay. And again, you represent Poison Control Center of?
We're for the whole state
For
of
the whole
Missouri.
state.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm one of 54 poisons in the whole U.S. And nationwide, as they mentioned, this is a problem nationwide that we really need to in our own state to help control. There's last year just over 17,000 cases of the different cannabinoid products, the intoxicating ones, Delta 8, CBD, and the different derivatives down there. So that's just specifically nationwide focused on those, and it continues to grow.
And again, would you just provide, I think maybe Senator Nicole asked for something of this, but provide for the committee just some information, a breakdown on how the calls that poison control has received and how those have changed or increased over the years concerning these products. I
Certainly.
think that's really helpful. And then again, any, and maybe there's somebody else in the audience who can speak to this, but again, I'm really trying to hone in on the dangers to children and what we're seeing. It's right here in Missouri.
Yes. So what we see, and I included in my statement here some graphs of what we've seen on the increase. So if we just look at edible products, and yes, sometimes we can differentiate down to the Delta 8 and sometimes not, because you have to think, you have a panicked parent who has a child that's ataxic or stumbling, drowsy, not speaking.
Unresponsive, yeah.
Yeah. And so to get the name, we're concerned in the moment to treat what's going on. And so with that, in 2015, we maybe had 5, and in 2023, we had 204 exposures. So actual children that have gotten into it and we were contacted about. And that's just who passively can call the poison hotline and get one of our nurses or pharmacists to speak with. So how many more just go straight to the emergency department? We don't have that number to report being the poison center, but our experiences is it's doubled almost every year.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? May I question?
Yes, Senator Moon.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to deliver a couple of pages to the witness. Could you give that to her? Thank you, Mr. Robbins. As you look at both those pages, the second page in particular, I've highlighted one area, circled it with an arrow. Would that product be prohibited in your estimation?
So it looks like it says Delta 9,
Yes.
but is this a regulated product? I'm not sure. So I would have to say I can't say if it's prohibited or not prohibited, and that's the problem. Often when you have these products and the label says something, if it does say something, it's often inadequate or inaccurate. And
So
we
if that
don't
were on a
really know.
C-store shelf, would
If-
that be, if that were on a C-store shelf, would that be something that you would say shouldn't be accessible to children?
I would not want this accessible to my child if I was there. I mean,
Okay.
this looks like it could be a concern. It's something that says it has Delta 9, which we know is an intoxicating
Right.
cannabinoid.
Well, the reason I wanted you to answer that question is because that particular product has been used by a child that I know of that has seizures, and it stops the seizures. So I think we need to do a little bit more in discussion on what is prohibited and why, and how it's accessed. And of course, that's under adult supervision too. I understand that, but so thank you for your answer.
But it is under adult supervision, and that's the thing. They bring this into their home, they know it and control it and know what it is, versus so many parents are going into these gas stations or stores and bringing in things that they have no idea and then are accessible
And that's a fair point.
to them.
Sure.
And then that's where I think, when we have it regulated and in control and being brought in, even everybody has to have a buy-in here, and there needs to be control of the packaging
Right.
and what it looks like. Gummies, kids love them. I mean, adults like them, and they go after them thinking they're candy.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And there are some other concerns here. I'll talk to the bill sponsor later about some of the other concerns that I have when that's regulated and when it's necessary for treatment of a medical condition, what privileges you might be sacrificing in order to do that. But thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions? Senator Hudson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So did I understand you correctly that last year you logged 718 instances of children being poisoned by this substance?
All ages.
All ages.
All
Okay.
ages.
In the data that you are going to provide to us, will that have a breakdown? So many were children and so many were.
I gave a percentage of it. It's 46%.
46% were
Yes,
children. Okay.
for children.
Do we know of those 46%, how many of them came into contact with the substance because they purchased it at a convenience store, or their parents did and it was in the home? Do we have data on that?
That's not a question we ask necessarily within the immediate treatment. It is things that we have begun asking over the last year because that seems to be such the issue is, did they buy it? Where did they buy it? If we can do that on follow-up after the medical attention is given, we do try to obtain that information. But often things are brought into parents' homes by other people.
Sure.
And they don't even know they're there. Especially, I can just give an example of November and the holidays. So many people visiting, and one of my specialists on the hotline go, "What's going on with the gummies? We've had 7 exposures today alone." And these are from items being brought into people's homes because guests are visiting and they're accessible in purses and suitcases. And that's where we get into trouble too.
Okay.
It's accessibility and looking like a candy or a product that doesn't have child-resistant packaging, or even there's been states that have done individual dosage packaging. So you don't have a bag of 10, different pieces of something that have anywhere from 5 up to 100 or 1,000 milligrams of something in there.
So in many cases, this is a substance that was brought into the home by someone. The child comes across it, and it looks like candy, and so the child helps him or herself. And
It's about looking like candy, yeah.
okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any more questions from the committee? Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Thank you.
I am very, very sorry, but we are several minutes out of time to hear any more testimony for, so we're going to begin testimony against.
Mr. Chair and committee members, how you doing this morning? My name is John Grady. Here's my witness form. I'm going to go ahead and put this here along with a bill I'm working on with Representative Bill Allen in the House that addresses a lot of these things, so you can see those issues that were talked about. I'm going to talk quickly from the heart in deference to time. I'm a combat veteran. I fought for this country. I uphold and defend the Constitution. SB54 is an exact violation on the Missouri Constitution, specifically Article 14 that you hear everybody talking about, because it specifically states in Article 14, marijuana does not include industrial hemp as defined by Missouri statute or commodities or products manufactured in industrial hemp. It goes on to further defer to the federal standard, which the federal law says hemp, the plant species, cannabis sativa L, and any part of that plant, including the seeds thereof and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts isomers, whether growing or not, with a total delta-9 tetracannabinol concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. So what SB54 does seeks to change the Missouri Constitution without giving voter approval. So as a veteran, that really upsets me. Normally, when I'm in a spot, I have PTSD from 2 tours in Iraq and Hurricane Katrina when I came back from my 2nd tour. I normally carry a vape around, and it's in my coat pocket over there, and I have one here, I'll show you, that contains THCA. I don't want to go to the dispensaries. I don't want to be forced into there, because no matter how many provisions Senator Schroer says he puts in there to protect me, there's screw-ups all the time where they release confidential information, and we've seen the VA, we've seen ATF and other agencies get a hold of that information, and I don't feel protected or safe, and I shouldn't have that fear in a country I swore and offered my life up to defend. I lost brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, I'll defer.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Would you?
All my information, sir, as I'm leaving. Oh.
Is there any questions from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you. Yes, Senator Lewis.
Just wanted to thank you for your service and testifying today.
Thank you, ma'am.
If I may.
Sure, absolutely.
You have a store that sells this, correct? Or you produce it?
We are. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I am a hemp farmer, and we also make products manufacturers, and we run a organization called 1,000 Ripples, where we provide to veterans and active cancer patients cannabinoid therapies free of charge. One thing that you don't see in the industry there.
Well, my question is, it was mentioned about the federal loopholes. And we don't know when and if they will get closed. It's probably a long time in coming. But what would happen if those loopholes are closed? And how would you address the situation now with the only regulated product?
Right now, we have been self-regulating. We started our company in 2022, and we started asking for regulations then when we started doing our product labeling and all those things when we realized there was nothing out there. So we've been coming up here since 2022 asking for regulations. I've submitted legislation before, asking to work with lawmakers. I contacted Senator Schroer last year about his bill, SB984, and I see he addressed some of the concerns we raised, but he also puts us out of business by taking a federally legal business, which is the hemp industry, and putting us under the federally illegal industry, because make no qualms about it, marijuana is federally illegal. The Marijuana Trade Association is an organized crime entity. That is the truth. They are drug dealers according to federal law. So we have a tolerance in Missouri, and I acknowledge that tolerance, and I say that's a positive, good step. However, I don't think we should sit there and kill a federally licit industry when the industry has been asking for guardrails and asking for regulations for 3 years straight, because I've been the one bringing this stuff, and that's why I brought up this one again, that we have Rep. Bill Allen is looking at. We're working with Senator Trent on his bill that puts those regulations up. We're working with Representative Dave Hinman and Representative Baker in the House to get those things. We're looking for all Missourians and Missouri companies, farmers, small businesses everywhere. We are not looking for, you heard testify, out-of-state marijuana monopolist. That's what we have here. That's the 39 pages that got bought and paid for and enshrined in our Constitution. And then they want to go against that, and that's where I take issue. Like I said, I risked my life for this country. I will always defend the Constitution.
Thank you.
And I know you do too, sir, and I appreciate that.
Any other questions for the witness? Hearing none, thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Can we have the next witness for opposed? Just depending on the time. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Ron Leone. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Petroleum and Convenience Association, which means I represent many of your constituents who own and operate gas stations, convenience stores, truck stops. I know time is of the essence. I want to make 3 key points today, Mr. Chairman, some of which have been made earlier by some of the other witnesses. First and foremost, it's important to talk about the classification of the products. Hemp-derived products are in fact lawful under federal law, including the 2018 Farm Bill and other federal laws, while marijuana is in fact illegal under federal law. It's currently considered a Schedule I drug. I think there's a movement to try and make it a Schedule III drug. Secondly, I think it's important as you look at this issue that you need to understand that 90% of this issue is agreed upon between the proponents and the opponents. And let me just briefly list the issues that everybody agrees on. Adults 21 and older are the only people that should be able to have these products. There shouldn't be a new bureaucracy created to regulate these lawful federal hemp-derived products. It should be Health and Senior Services or Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control. Everybody agrees that the products need to be tested, they need to be safe, they need to be tested for potency, packaging, labeling. Nobody wants to put anything out there that's attractive to children. Everybody agrees that these things, the products need to be licensed. The producers, the distributors, the retailers need to be licensed. And again, either the department or the division has enforcement of the law as well as any rules and regulations. Lastly, everybody agrees that unsafe products need to be kept out of the marketplace. We hear a lot about products coming from China that are have a lot of nasty stuff in them. Of course, that stuff should not be allowed. Everything should be made in America at the very least, tested, regulated, etc. Here's what this issue boils down to, and I know you're going to be shocked by that. It boils down to money and market share and who gets to sell these products.
I'm sorry, sir, time has expired. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any
Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you very much. Any questions from the senators on the committee? Senator Nuremberg.
Good morning, Ron. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning.
Question for you on, so one of the things I appreciate you saying, and I think everybody in the room agrees on this, right? We are all here to make sure that kids are safe.
Correct.
And everybody's in agreement that these products should not be sold to minors.
Absolutely.
My question for you, as somebody who represents a lot of these stores who are
Right.
selling these products, is where are you in terms of putting these? I think the Senator Moon mentioned this in a different restricted area outside of the counter. So, for example, certain. I don't know, certain liquors or whatever are already
Sure.
behind glass cases because they're expensive
Sure.
and they don't want to be, and you don't want to be robbed, right, at your location. So, where are you in terms of a compromise piece of regulating where and how these products are placed on counters and so that they're not accessible or,
Sure.
again, easily stolen by minors?
Yeah, I think it's important when you look at what sort of regulations, what sort of licensure you want. Some products need to be kept behind the counter. I mean, it's clear what we should be doing depending on the product. But if you're talking about beverages, that can't be kept behind the counter. So, of course, there has to be a different mechanism, whether it's locked or whether they're open, and we just make sure that only adults purchase those, like we do with tobacco, like we do with alcohol, like we do with lottery tickets. We're pretty good at selling age-restricted products to adults only. I'm 100% confident that we can do this under the appropriate regulation, taxation, licensure, et cetera. Are there bad actors out there right now doing nasty stuff? Probably. We certainly don't advocate for them. I'm not asking for you to massage the law so that they can sell adulterated products either to children or adults. We just want to be able to sell what's lawful under federal law. We want to be able to sell that here in Missouri, and we don't think the marijuana monopoly should be the only folks that get to sell these products. All retailers should be able to sell these products once you've regulated, licensed the industry.
Okay. And then last question for you. How would you restrict products from China in your stores?
You know, that's a tough question. And we played with that last year when you were in the House. And I think you could pass some language in the law. I don't think you can say, and I'm not a constitutional scholar, although I know a little bit about it. I think you could pass some language that says all of the products have to be made in America. I'm not sure you could say all the products have to be made in Missouri because of interstate commerce issues, but I do think you could say they can be made in America, and that might cut down on some of the nasty stuff that's coming from China and other places that's creating problems not only with children, but trade imbalances and things like that. So I think there is language that can be made. It's going to be imperfect, but I think there's an opportunity to do that here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for the witness? Sir, thank you so
Thank you.
much. I really appreciate it. Can we have the next witness for opposition, please?
This isn't a convenient spot. Good morning. My name is Brooklyn Hill, and I'm president of Mohemp Trade Association. I know that time is limited, so kind of like Ron, I'm just going to give some of the bullet points. I'm from an extremely small town, Bunker, Missouri, in Reynolds County, home of 300 people, logging industry, things like that. I've watched my dad wake up early, long before the sun came up, come home long after the sun came down in the logging industry my entire life. He got into CBD, which led to building a manufacturing and distributing company. It's incredible to see my dad, hero of my childhood, build a legacy from the ground up. One in a small town that can help, employ what's normally poverty. Saying that as well, not only will it eradicate so many hundreds of men and women like my father who have built their businesses from the ground up, but we do focus on safety. Where I'm from, they're not going to drive 45 miles to a dispensary. What they're going to do is go back to getting it where they used to, which is people on the block. And let's be honest, Chairman, the fentanyl epidemic is we've claimed way too many lives. So just saying that, what it's going to do to Missourians is just, there's no words for it. Whenever we want regulation, there's no reason to eradicate an entire industry full of men and women who have fought for this country, many of whom have built their own businesses from the ground up and rely on these products. It's not fair to tell mothers of cancer patients and children that they must drive an hour away to have a product to provide relief for their children and pay 3 or 4 times that amount. Like I said, safety is of utmost importance to us. The hemp industry as a whole, be a few bad actors like in every industry. We are for age gating. We are for safety. We're for safe packaging, sorry. And we're already implementing those things, right? So, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Time has expired. Is there any questions for the witness from the committee? Hearing none, we'll take the next witness. Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Good morning. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rick McAvick, and I, along with my partner Nicole Woods, are the proud owners of the Popcorn Dispensary, a small business in Herman, Missouri. I'm here to speak in opposition to this bill, particularly the provision prohibiting the use of the word dispensary in non-cannabis business names. When we started this business just last June, the last thing I expected is that I would be sitting here defending the use of a word in our business name. As you may know or imagine, coming up with a name that perfectly describes a new business is a very difficult thing to do, especially in an industry like selling gourmet popcorn, where so many names are already taken. We were thrilled to come up with the name The Popcorn Dispensary, as it perfectly described what we did, dispense popcorn. After settling on the name and finding a great location, we poured our blood, sweat, and literal tears into building this business. We uprooted our lives and invested everything we had to create the Popcorn Dispensary, and were warmly welcomed into the Herman community. Our name has become an integral part of our brand. This bill puts our business and the livelihoods of our 10 employees at risk. These are real people with families to support. Rebranding is not an option. It would be devastating to our business. As written, this bill presents a problematic precedent. Enacting it would be akin to outlawing the word dealership in a business name not related to car sales, even though it's used in many other industries as well. It's unnecessary overreach that disrupts businesses and has no meaningful public benefit. This isn't just about a word, it's about the survival of several small businesses. In our case, it halts future plans for expansion, deprives our community of jobs, and erases the contributions we make through sales tax revenue. I urge you to consider the real-world impacts this bill would have, not just on my business, but on the lives of our employees and the economy of Herman, Missouri. Thank you for your time and your service to the state of Missouri. I respectfully ask you to amend the bill to remove or revise the provision regarding the use of the word dispensary. Small businesses like mine depend on your support.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Is there any questions from Senator Nirenberg?
Thanks for being here this morning. I really appreciate you bringing that up. That was the first time I'd heard of that, and your logo's awesome, and I look forward to visiting you all when I'm in Herman next time. So thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions from the committee? Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Appreciate it. I am sorry, everybody, if you came to speak in opposition. We are out of time for any more. Is there any public informational purposes only? Anyone here that would like to speak for informational purposes only at this time? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I had to testify for information only. I just want to go through a few things with this bill. This need to protect our children is the number one priority. We need to make sure that our children of the state are not baited. The product in edible consumers getting into the wrong hands is the number one priority. There needs to be consumer protections, privacy, confidentiality, common sense legislation, something that needs to be done to protect Missourians. Let's amend this bill and not put hemp businesses out of business. Under the federal farm bill, there are some constitutional questions here. We want to make sure that we save taxpayer money, and so I'd like to see some type of compromise, some type of amendment by both sides to make sure that all Missourians are protected on both sides of the coin. For us to get into a constitutional issue in federal courts or possibly state courts could cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue that could go to better things to serve Missourians across the state. That's my testimony on this bill, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
If you have come and haven't had an opportunity to testify, please do leave your witness form with your testimony here, and it will be submitted to the committee. And for those of you who have testified, information, okay. Just ask you to be brief.
Very brief. Ethan Thampi with American Shaman and Pinnacle Hemp. Just wanted to share one bit of information. Attaching a short monograph on the national security implications of transferring a federally legal product into a federally illegal business. We've had conversations with numerous folks in the intelligence community, both current and retired, who, if you're a retired member of with a service member with a DoD security clearance, do private contracting from time to time, you have a duty to not use or transact business in a federally illegal environment. So we just want to highlight the issue there with forcing private individuals with DoD security clearances from having to choose between using a federally illegal product or having it not accessible and going to a federally illegal venue and having to give up their security clearance. We don't believe we're in a...
So is this a testimony for informational purposes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes Senate Bill 54. If you have come to testify in favor or against that bill, if you're here for that bill 54, we ask you to please exit the hearing room so that makes room for the other two bills. Thank you. Yeah, I have it drunk from this way. Okay.
Everything all right upstairs?
What? You're first. All right, as everybody's getting settled, we're going to continue to move on. We are going to hear from Senator Fitzwater on Senate Bill 45. Senator, we're just going to keep trucking.
Sounds good.
So when you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations on your chairmanship. It's great to see you in that role. I'm State Senator Travis Fitzwater of the 10th District, and I'm bringing before the committee Senate Bill 45. This is an issue that impacts patients about as much as anything does, and it may be one of the most confusing and complex systems that nobody really understands very well. And I do, because I've worked for pharmacists for the vast majority of my career. And I'm going to try to be really brief because I know there are pharmacists here that can tell you their actual story and how it impacts patient care and what they see on a daily basis. But you're also going to hear from the pharmacy benefit managers who will tell you how transparency and ensuring that people can get the drugs they need that have been approved by their doctors and the patient, how that somehow raises costs. And this bill is trying to prevent that from happening any further. There are transparency pieces that require PBMs to be honest about what they're paying pharmacists, what they're charging employers, ensuring that rebates, which is this way that PBMs negotiate with drug companies. They go in and they say, we have this big employee network, we have all these employees, we should get discounts on drugs, so you should give us these large rebates. And over the years, those have been a real cost driver. They've been really helpful in actually reducing the cost of drugs, except that the prescriptions are still going through the roof. And so what's happening in that space is even though rebates are going down as far as a revenue model for PBMs, the fees that they're charging within their plans are extremely high. And you'll hear it from pharmacists that they'll get reimbursed on a drug, and then pharmacy benefit managers will come in later who they contract with, and they'll take fees out of the reimbursements, which is just terribly unfair. They're also forcing patients into their preferred networks, and PBMs used to be entities that were individually stationed. They were just companies that were doing a good service to the system by transacting between the employers and the pharmacists. So they're making all of that transactional in between, those transaction fees that they would charge were a useful help in the system for the complexity of our healthcare system. Now they're taking spreads on drugs. They're doing so much more than that. They're owned by insurance companies. So it's not just the PBM entity anymore. They're vertically integrated throughout the system. So insurance companies own pharmacies, they own mail order facilities, they own PBMs, and they're able to force patients into their vertically integrated system. And that's unfair because they're charging more to their integrated system than they're reimbursing pharmacists and independent pharmacies. And this is killing businesses because contractually, an independent pharmacy that maybe have 1, 2, 3 stores, they get a contract from a PBM, and they have to sign it because they may have 50% of their business is done through that PBM. And so they can't tell their community we're gonna turn our back on half of the patients that come in here. We have to take the contract and do our best. And a lot of the drugs nowadays that they're getting reimbursed for, they don't get reimbursed for the cost that it costs them to pay for the drug for the patients. These are all huge problems, and this is a bill to try to help with some of that. I'm glad to answer questions that are in the bill. I know there are a lot of people here to testify in favor and opposition. It'll be very controversial. It's very complex, the whole system. But at the end of the day, it's really a patient care thing. Do you want your independent pharmacy that is on a yearly basis? Pharmacists are considered one of the top most trusted healthcare providers in our communities. They don't get paid to stand there at the counter and tell you how to take your meds and how they interact with each other. They do it for free. And they take care of our communities. They're leaders in our communities. They're investing in our communities. And they're going away. This is also a priority of President Trump. You see bipartisan congressional U.S. senators and U.S. congressmen and women. Anytime you have Josh Hawley and Elizabeth Warren on the same side of an issue, maybe it raises eyebrows a little bit on like what's going on here. And so with all those coalitions saying something's got to be done with PBMs, and you see the independent pharmacies closing in our state. There's 3 in Jeff City alone that went away in the last couple of years that were our hometown pharmacy that we've used for the entirety of the time I've lived in Missouri. That's concerning. Rural healthcare is going to go away if pharmacies can't survive in the marketplace. And it's anti-competitive, it's not fair, and this bill tries to address some of those issues. I'm glad to answer any questions, but I know there are a lot of passionate individuals I would love to talk to you as well.
Senator, I do have a question before we turn it over to the committee for questions. Can you just explain what I understand you're saying, excuse me, is that with the vertical alignment, the insurance companies also have pharmaceutical companies, right?
Yeah,
They're
so
vertically aligning, and that's how they push their clients to a certain contractor.
Yeah, it's very complex. So what they'll do is, let's say specialty drugs. Specialty drugs are something that's over a certain price. I think it's like $600. It's not really a specialty drug. It's just an expensive drug. They will have preferred networks. So a pharmacy that's been doing business with this PBM over maybe decades, they're starting to get squeezed out of that market because what will happen is that they'll say you can only get this drug in an approved pharmacy that will fulfill the requirements we have. So they will reimburse themselves at a much larger margin than they'll reimburse the independent pharmacy. So if you go get your specialty drug, an expensive drug from a local pharmacy, they'll say or they'll reimburse that pharmacy for much less than they'll reimburse themselves. And this is a real concern. I just saw a congressman asking a CVS Caremark, I believe, in a federal hearing about the difference in cost from a NADAC, which is kind of a national drug cost list, and what CVS Caremark charges for an individual drug. And they were tens of thousands of % higher than what the NADAC price is, what it's going for. And so it's anti-competitive because it's forcing our constituents to a mail order or a facility that is owned by the PBM or owned by the insurance companies. The PBM owns or the insurance companies own the PBM. They're sending people to their preferred networks and they're charging much more. That's why it's driving the cost. That drives the cost up. I will mention one more thing too, and this is really interesting in our state. We're one of the few states where Medicaid is self-managed. We don't have a PBM running Medicaid. And if you talk to the pharmacy director of our Medicaid program, he's a pharmacist himself, incredibly impressive individual, Josh Moore, big fan of this guy. He goes and he negotiates rebates on behalf of the state. And the Medicaid program, which is almost unheard of, has had pretty level cost over the last 6 years in pharmacy, which is wild. You don't see this very often. And so to have a system, the Medicaid program, which is very expensive, actually doing well in the space of keeping costs down in drugs, and it's self-managed by our own state, is a really big indicator, like what's going on in the other spaces where drug prices are going through the roof. So there are a lot of indicators here, and it's, again, very complex. These pharmacists and some of the people in the audience will give you a real view of how it's impacted their own businesses. These are entrepreneurs. They're not just pharmacists. They're local business owners that that are taking on the brunt of the needs for a lot of our constituents.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the Senator? Senator
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator, for that explanation. And some conversations I've had with pharmacists in the southwest part of the state, they've indicated that often they don't know what the final price of the product is, so you'll have a customer there paying for the prescription, and at the point of sale, they're surprised where they've lost any margin they might have had. Is that still happening in your
I think the
estimation?
pharmacists will come up and be able to give you a better indication of that, but I think that's why it's so hard right now. And it's not just that. The adjudication of a claim happens real time. So a patient comes in, I'll go through a computer system, it's approved or disapproved or whatever, and then they know kind of what with the copay and what they're going to get right there, or if a patient has to pay under their deductible plan or whatever. But PBMs will also come back and recoup dollars. So they'll withhold money later that they owe you because they come up with all kinds of different varying fees that they charge an independent pharmacy. And independent pharmacy can't fight this stuff. They don't have general counsels in their pharmacies willing to go to bat for their bottom line. They just can't. They're inundated with patients. They're taking care of our people. And so it's a very complex and hard system that has really hurt independent pharmacies.
And another question with regard to your allusion to a potential movement is moving at the federal level already. Since it's a federal program, and we have a conundrum that we're within, and you know how I am about state sovereignty. I think that we created the federal government, so we should have some say in this, and I think we will. But how much of this, in your opinion, should be driven and initiated at the federal level to make a difference in this program?
Yeah, I think it needs to be multifaceted. Honestly, I think the feds need to step in because I think it's harder for the states to get into the complexities of the business model on a grand scale. But I do think that transparency helps. I do think that honesty in what type of rebates are being negotiated on behalf of employers. I think there's a fiduciary standard in here that makes sense. You know, when I have my financial advisor is a fiduciary for me now, and a lot of that was driven by a lot of people on the federal level seeing normal everyday people getting taken behind the woodshed on from their financial advisors, charging a lot of fees that you just don't understand. It's a very similar model. So having to be a fiduciary for employers, making sure they're doing the right thing for plans, is really a helpful piece also that I think the state could do, that other states have done and had pretty good success.
Any other questions for the Senator? Seeing none, thank you for your
Madam Chair.
testimony. And we will start with, how much time do we have left? Okay, so let's limit it, testimony to, okay. So we're going to limit 15 minutes for testimonies in favor of the bill and then 15 against, so that you know that. So let's go ahead and start with our first witness in favor of Senate Bill 45.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be sure just hit the gavel or whatever when you want to cut me off. I could talk on this forever, as some folks know, have heard me talk before. So Jorgen Schlemer on behalf of the Missouri Pharmacy Association. Senate Bill 45 is really a reaction to not just anecdotal information and data and pharmacists talking about what's going on in their pharmacy. This is a reaction to dozens and dozens of reports and studies, whether it's from the government, and I think the sponsor talked about Elizabeth Warren and Josh Hawley coming down on the same side. Donald Trump and Joe Biden also agree on this issue exactly. There is no space between them on this issue on what they think about PBMs. In fact, Trump just blasted the PBMs, I think, 10 days ago in a press conference. Mark Cuban went to a big summit with business owners and said, you guys are getting taken advantage of. The reports that are coming out on this not only blast what the PBMs are doing, they all have one conclusion, and they all have the exact same conclusion. And that is that PBMs raise the price of drugs, they harm patients, they harm providers, and they harm plan sponsors. No doubt about it. And when I was in college, I took statistics, right? My wife, who was then my girlfriend, was like, you're weird. She still says that, by the way. But she said, statistics is kind of a weird class for that to be your favorite class. You know what the probability is? That we've had 35 or 40 reports that have all said the exact same, that have all come to the exact same wrong conclusion. If the PBMs are right, it's zero, right? It's zero. So what this bill attempts to do is address the rebates, and the rebates are a very, very important part, and that is what one report says very clearly that sums up all the other reports. There is a direct correlation between the amount the rebate PBMs receive and the increase in the price of the drug, okay? This bill tries to address the rebates, it tries to address spread pricing, and this morning I heard that specialty drugs are now the #1 cost driver for increasing the price of drugs.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, thank you. Next in favor. Oh, sorry, questions for the witness? Nope, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C., AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I'm in favor of this bill. In some rural communities, the pharmacist is the lifeline to medical advice and resources concerning medicine and prescriptions. Fees and costs are taking away vital needed medicine and prescriptions from Missourians that rely on these medicines to live a quality life. Independent pharmacies are being booted from the system that are desperately needed in rural Missouri. Missourians are getting, we need to ensure that Missourians are getting the medicine that they must have. Big pharmacy is squeezing small family pharmacies out of business, and that's doing a detriment to our state economy. There are cost concerns and affordability on both sides for the big commercial entities, such as can't think of the firm in St. Louis County, Express Scripts, that's the name of it. Taking medicines with lack of advice and taking medicine, these pharmacies are providing that vital needed service. Something needs to be done as Missourians are starting to go without, jeopardizing their health because of cost, and which will add to more health costs in the long run. And so I would urge this committee to vote this bill and make the necessary amendments. Something needs to be done. We need to have a even keel and a middle ground for both sides. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Make sure you turn in your witness form, please.
I did online.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Erica Crane. I'm a pharmacist in Columbia, and I have been a pharmacist now for almost 18 years, so I've seen a lot, the huge changes in healthcare and pharmacy, and just recently in 2021 opened a cash-only, no insurance pharmacy because of PBMs and the practices they've really always done, but it's just gotten more prevalent and bigger with the vertical integration. So I'm here to say that us as pharmacists have just changed the way we practice now. We want to offer medications at at costs that people can afford, and you don't have to have insurance to do that. PBMs do not lower costs of medications. They don't increase the availability. What they are doing is closing our independent pharmacies. I've worked at an independent pharmacy for 15 years, and I'm still surprised they're open now. Even in Jeff City, we hardly have any independent pharmacies anymore. Access for patients to be able to go where they want to go and not be forced to mail order. My father, he was forced to either use a CVS or that was it, or mail order. And this was back in the days where there was no CVS around mid-Missouri. It wasn't until recently that we actually had one. So this is just, it's compounding. I see it every day in practice. Pharmacies getting reimbursed much lower than the actual cost of medication. And though we are here to help patients, safety number one, pharmacy is still a business, and it's really hard to stay open whenever you have to take negative reimbursement. And also, it's just CVS, other entities that own pharmacies should not be able to pay themselves more. It should be, this is the cost of a medication, this is what we're going to reimburse you. But we are finding that that's not the case. And it is, patients deserve better, and also business owners do too.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Make sure, again, you submit your witness form.
Good morning, Chairman, Committee. My name is Bridget Tyree. I'm the Executive Director for Gateway Hemophilia Association, so I'm here to give you the patient side. I left leave behinds for you. Right now, I have 22 organizations that represent the patients. So I can talk about the patient assistance, the all co-pays counts portion. So that is an assistance program for patients that need to meet their out-of-pocket deductible. What's happening is they apply for assistance program, and the insurance company says we're not going to apply that towards your out-of-pocket max. So patients are in for that double, for twice. So my son has hemophilia. I run the hemophilia organization, but you look at this page, ALS, infusion center, there's arthritis. There's so many thousands of Missourians that need their medication, and they use that through an assistance program. It's not a rebate. That portion, they have their drugs, their cost is already settled, their insurance premiums are settled. They are getting an assistance. They're not getting a coupon. They're not getting a rebate. And I'd be happy to meet with any of you one-on-one to talk about how, when they don't get their medicine, how they end up in the emergency room, and it's much more costly in the long run. For hemophilia, it's about $300,000 to $400,000 a year. It is a specialty drug, so they need assistance programs.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness?
You mentioned the copay, and if I understood you right, you were talking about when a patient comes in, they pay part of the copay and someone else pays the other part. And you're talking about the accumulator here.
Yes, sir. Yes, Senator.
To that point, is there anyone in here can explain to me the logic of that, where you wouldn't allow, there is someone, okay. I understand there is someone, so I'll save that question about the logic of it later, but thanks for that part.
And 96% of the people that use those programs don't have a generic alternative. So you'll hear the other side that it's driving people to higher cost drugs. They don't have a generic alternative. So if I can get that point across, can I get the point that it's not a coupon, it is an assistance program, just like you'd apply for a scholarship at a college. It's an assistance.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next.
Emily Kalmer, American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Similar to Bridget, we support the copay provision. That's 376.448 section of this bill. And some of you may have heard testimony on this in other committees, but just from the cancer perspective, oftentimes cancer patients are prescribed drugs. As Bridget mentioned, they don't have a generic alternative. They go and, because they are very expensive, receive assistance, whether it's from a manufacturer or from another charitable organization. And in recent years, insurance companies have not been allowing that to count toward their out-of-pocket costs. Our point is the patient is not receiving the full value of the assistance that they're meant to get. And that unfortunately leads to them not being able to use their medication at times a year when they run out of funds. So last year, Joan, one of our cancer patients here in Missouri, came and spoke to this experience with her metastatic ovarian cancer and how she's had that happen. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but I'd love to have her come meet with you guys at other times if you'd like to hear from a patient who's been specifically impacted. And just to reiterate, this is a drug prescribed already by the doctor. The insurance company has already decided to cover it on their formulary. we're not saying they can't use step therapy and some of their other prior authorization methods that they like to use to make sure that they're controlling costs. We're just saying if the drug's prescribed by their doctor, prescribed for their doctor, oftentimes not an alternative generic as the language provides here, the patient needs to be able to get the assistance that they need to afford their medication. So happy to answer any questions with you. I know there are some other issues that people may have that they would like to discuss, and I'm happy to share, but I know we're short on time today.
Thank you, Emily. Is it Emily?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you again.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Jacob Scott, Missouri State Medical Association. We have 4,000 plus member physicians here in Missouri testifying in favor of the provisions that Emily just talked about with cost sharing. We believe this is a great way for patients to receive the care that they need and to basically make that easier to do because cost continues to be a major barrier to that, and it's an imaginative way to make that happen. So here to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you, Jacob. Go ahead and did you leave a witness form? Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Rachel Bauer, and I am here on behalf of MAOPS, the Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons, in favor of the copay accumulator portion of this legislation. You know, it's really great. Price is a burden, you know, for many patients, and whenever they can access their drugs and take their medicine according, you know, the way that their doctors prescribe them, it's best for them. And so we don't want them to fall out of compliance with their prescriptions. We want them to be able to access their medication and stay healthy.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Next, how are we doing on time? Okay, we have about 3 minutes.
David Winton here on behalf of BJC as well as Rankin Jordan Healthcare. So I'm here. I'd be happy to visit with you all about the accumulator language. I know you're on a tight time schedule. You've heard some testimony. It's really pretty straightforward on the accumulator part. We support the entire bill. The accumulator part basically says for PBMs and insurers, regardless of where the patient brings in their copay, whether that's getting it from an uncle who's going to support them, or it's getting it from a pharmaceutical assistance program, from a pharma company, or from the American Cancer Society, or finding it in their cushion, in the change in their cushion, it doesn't matter. It's not for the insurance company or the PBM to adjudicate where's the appropriate place to get that copay. If they come in and satisfy their copay, then they get that drug, and that counts toward their deductible. That is all this does.
Great. Thank you, David. Any questions for the witness?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Whitten, for that explanation. I was aware of that, and I'm favorable with it. I was looking for someone who's opposed to it because I agree with the logic that you're presenting, and if it's paid, it's paid, no matter where it's coming from. So
There will be no shortage of people opposed to it. I'm quite certain.
I'm looking forward to talking to them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Megan Howerton. I'm here on behalf of Mosaic Life Care, which is a hospital out in St. Joseph, Missouri, just here in support of the bill.
All right. Thank you, Megan. We have testimony for one more in favor.
Good morning, Olivia Wilson on behalf of MU Healthcare. Just wanted to do a Me Too in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. All right. That concludes testimony and witnesses in favor of the bill. At this point, we will go to testimony opposed to the bill. We're going to limit that time to 15 minutes as well, so just keep your comments succinct, please, as we progress. So, first witness opposed.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Melody Schroer. I represent the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, which is the National Trade Association for Pharmacy Benefit Managers, otherwise known as PBMs. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I absolutely agree with the sponsor of the bill. This is a complex issue, and it's very difficult to unpack in such a short time, but I will do my best to kind of give an overview of the issues that we see. First of all, I'd like to give a little history. In this country, our insurance is provided primarily as an employer-based entity. So if you're working for a company, most likely that's how you're getting your insurance. This bill is going to impact their ability to construct their contracts to actually fit their needs of that company and the size of the employer. I want to point that out because it's very important as we talk through these issues that what we're really doing is mandating contract provisions in private contracts across Missouri. So PBMs are not, we're the only entity in the entire drug supply chain whose only purpose is to control cost. PBMs were created and actually provide services to employers because we help them control those costs. No company, and I think this is really an important message, no company, no state, no union plan across the country is required to use a PBM. But I will stress that federal government, state government, Medicaid programs, not here in Missouri, but others, union plans, self-insured employers, and health plans across the country use PBMs every day because they help control costs. There are 70 PBMs in the marketplace today. It's a highly competitive marketplace. The provisions in your bill, if enacted as it's written today, and I can't cost out everything, but at least two of the provisions would cost the state of Missouri over $480 million the first year in increased drug cost because those employers, health plans, and union plans could not help control their costs because those provisions would have been taken away from them.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Make sure you fill out witness form. All right, next.
Hi, I'm Laurel Pickering, and I'm the president and CEO of the St. Louis Area Business Health Coalition, representing those employers. We represent 70 employers. Most of them are in Missouri. Our members include Anheuser-Busch, Panera, Bass Pro, Drury, Boeing, Black & Veatch, Ameren, school districts, and more. And we purchase health care for 500,000 Missourians, which is almost 10% of the population. So we're really here representing those employers and workers. We are against policies and underlying market dynamics that make it harder for these companies to provide and purchase high-quality, low-cost health care for their employees. A lot of what we will impose impacts employers' health care costs and their ability to provide this affordable coverage. The provisions in this bill are being used to capture money from the employers and their workers, and they're going to increase those costs. And I think we know what happens when healthcare costs increase. Employers shift those costs to their employees, or they are not able to increase wages in a significant way. And I think we all know that healthcare costs have outpaced increase in wages over the number of years. So when it comes to PBMs, I want to echo what my colleague here said. PBMs provide a vital function for employers, and most employers over 500 employees are self-insured, and they use PBMs to deliver this benefit to employees. You know, the example we just heard about, well, Medicaid, can act as a PBM and do the purchasing. Like, Panera can't go to the pharmaceutical manufacturers and negotiate. The car dealership can't go to the manufacturers and negotiate. Yes, Medicaid can do that. Employers cannot do that individually on their own. They have to have a partner in this. So we don't have an alternative right now to the PBMs, and there are new PBMs that have entered the market that are trying to address some of these things, and we're very interested in learning about them and following them and understanding what they're doing. But right now, we don't have an alternative without the PBMs to do this.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to go ahead and, sorry to cut you off, but just in lieu of time. Any questions for the witness? I do have a question. So in regards to talking about businesses and things like that, how is it good at a 3,000-foot level when you have independent pharmacists that can't basically go in together and collectively bargain for the cost of prescriptions? And how is that beneficial? I mean, from what the senator is saying, when you have independent pharmaceutical companies going out of business, how is that good for the consumer when they don't have other options? So essentially, what I'm understanding is you're taking competition out of that whole environment.
Having a freedom of pharmacy to go anywhere actually increase costs. So anytime you have a network that lets anyone in, that's going to increase costs, and costs will be higher. It's customary for businesses to selectively contract for all sorts of things. And so what you're doing is essentially limiting the ability of the employer to contract the way they want to contract to reduce costs for their employees.
So you're ultimately in favor of closing down independent pharmacists because they can't, I mean.
When there is access in other ways, yes, which
Interesting.
usually there is.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair. So what I'm hearing you say is you're for centralization of power and concentrating that in just a few hands, pharmacies, as opposed to competition, because you said that allowing them choice increases prices, and that's usually not the way the free market works. So can you explain that?
Well, in healthcare, when you look at whether it's a health plan, if you have a broad network of any physician can be in it, that's usually more expensive than when you provide a narrow network, right? Whether it's just a particular health system. It works the same way with pharmacies. When you have a broad network of you can go anywhere, it's going to be more expensive. So in healthcare, we know healthcare doesn't function like the traditional market, and so in healthcare, it doesn't function that way.
Sorry, Senator, if I can. So are they really ultimately going anywhere where they're vertically aligned when the healthcare provider also is the one who owns the prescription drug company and they're the ones who are prescribing the prescriptions? I mean, you're vertically aligning, right? And so how is that going anywhere?
So the ultimate price being able to negotiate it is lower, so it lowers healthcare costs.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Okay.
Thank you for your testimony today. I have just a couple questions. Do you know how many businesses that are not being regulated by the state as far as insurance? If they're self-regulated, are they self-regulated, self-funding?
How many businesses are self-insured in the state?
Correctly. And if they are self-insured, are they regulated by the state?
I know probably about 75%, because that's really the statistic nationwide, are self-insured, which means that they are ERISA plans and they are not regulated by the state.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else testifying against Senate Bill 45?
Sorry, good morning. Mark Dalton on behalf of the Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council. Got some of my other labor colleagues as well, but want to go on record in opposition of the bill. Just to touch on a few things that were mentioned when we talk about vertical alignment and PBMs and insurance companies, all the vertical alignment, the way that our health and welfare funds work and our benefit funds work, we're viewed as pretty much an insurance company since we're self-managed, self-funded, self-run. So we get lumped in. I think there's a lot of unintended consequences with this type of legislation. I think there was some, good intentions, but when we get lumped in, and the insurance companies are being required to pay more to independent pharmacies to keep them afloat. That in turn is basically, our members that fund our health and welfare benefits are the ones funding those independent pharmacies to an increased amount to keep them afloat. We don't believe that should be on the backs of our members to keep businesses afloat. But then, these special pharmaceuticals, we have, a few years ago, we targeted that nationally with our organization. So we have the very high-end specialty pharmaceuticals. We manage that nationally and mail that out. That saves our plan locally in Missouri $5.1 million a year in order to do that. So that's a savings to our members and our fund that we're able to provide more benefits. Reductions in abilities to do things like that would result in us having to increase per hour contributions into the plan or a reduction of benefits. So I know we're trying to limit here, so I'm going to just be very brief on all of that. We have 23,000 members in our organization. We cover almost 50,000 belly buttons under our plan, and appreciate your time take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
My name is Zach Dunn. I work with the Missouri and Kansas Laborers District Council. We represent about 14,000 construction craft laborers here in Missouri, and we represent about 30,000 families or family members in our health and welfare plans. One of the issues that we have with the bill is the ending of pharmacy networks. As a union, one of the things that we try and include in our networks is we won't do business with Walmart because of some of the ideological differences on their union busting or what they've done to small businesses in rural communities. And so we actively, particularly in rural communities, will send our members to independent pharmacies because they're sometimes the only competitors in those areas. And so by ending pharmacy networks, you strip our ability to be able to create our networks that align with our interests. So I want to raise that as a point. And I know in talking with our in our fund managers, we understand that the impact to our funds would be about $500,000 if we ended pharmacy networks, and that's each year. Additionally, the copay accumulator language that's in the end of the bill, we have an understanding that we would lose some of our cost-saving programs that would cost us about $1 million annually. And when we have these increased costs to our plans, we are a self-funded plan, and so we have to come to determinations on either raising copays, raising deductibles, and those are outcomes that we don't want for our members, who we strive to provide quality access to health care each day, because we know that the work that they do on the job site is hard on their bodies and they need great medical care. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Senator?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I've heard this bill or types of bills over the past few years and heard your testimony. This is kind of the first time I've heard about the network and helping independent pharmacies and getting access in rural areas. Obviously, I live in the city and we've got pharmacies on every corner, but do you care to elaborate on how you're helping independent pharmacies in rural areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we have members all across the state. A lot of our members live in rural communities. I looked it up, and we have anywhere from 100 to 300 members living in each of your guys' districts, and that includes their family members. And so when we look to the pharmacies, like I said, we get to choose who we network with, and there are times where we have independent pharmacies in rural communities that may not be a network, and if a member calls our halls and say, hey, I'd love to go to this pharmacy, we almost always add them into our network because we want to support independent pharmacies. We want to be able to provide lower costs, and so to the extent that we can, we try and do both. And so that's kind of what I meant there.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimonies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senators, Jake Hummel, Missouri AFL-CIO, representing several 100,000 union members throughout the state. For all the reasons that we have said here, I would just echo that statement. Sometimes there's very, very good legislation that has unintended consequences that affects people in different ways. Because we are one of these most of our membership is under these self-insured plans, self-funded. There is a cost increase to all of our membership. For instance, I'm an electrician. I know that our membership pays almost $11 an hour every hour just for their health insurance. It is Cadillac health insurance, but any time there's any kind of increased cost, we work very hard to keep those costs down, even though that probably seems like a lot of money. And these really, really good plans that we have cost a lot of money. So any tweaking of anything that affects our membership has quite an extensive impact on us. I know that what I will say is all the sides have tried to find a agreeable carve-out for our plans. But as Senator Moon said, when you start adding what maybe should be done at a federal level and you mix it in with the state, being that our plans are ERISA plans, it becomes very complicated very quickly, and it can cost our membership a lot of money.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? See none? Thank you. Okay, that concludes a hearing on Senate Bill 45. Senator, do you have any closing comments?
Thanks for the time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. we're going to now hear Senate Bill 13. Senator Brown, when you're ready, you may begin. Yes.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Senator Justin Brown, representing District 16. I'm here to present Senate Bill 13. This legislation addresses critical issues within our healthcare system, specifically focused on protecting Missouri's safety net hospitals and healthcare providers that serve our most vulnerable patients. The 340B drug pricing program was established in 1992 under the Public Health Service Act to help safety net providers, including hospitals and certain clinics who offer affordable medications to low-income, uninsured, and underinsured individuals. The program achieves this by requiring drug manufacturers that participate in the Medicaid program to provide discounted medication to these healthcare providers. For Missouri's vulnerable communities, the 340B program is not just a lifeline, it is a critical resource that helps hospitals and clinics serve patients who otherwise may not have access to necessary medications. The program is designed to help these providers sustain their services, support health outcomes for underserved populations, and enhance healthcare access to those in need. Unfortunately, in recent years, the 340B program has faced serious challenges. Specifically, insurers and pharmacy benefit managers, also known as PBMs, have begun to discriminate against providers who participate in the program. By reimbursing these providers at lower rates simply because they dispense 340B drugs, insurers and PBMs are undermining the program's purpose. This discriminatory practice not only places an undue financial strain on safety net hospitals and their patients, but also creates significant barriers for patients in need of health care. When reimbursement rates are reduced, healthcare providers are forced to cut costs, which impacts their ability to maintain high-quality services. For example, hospitals that already grapple with high rates of uncompensated care find themselves in an even more difficult position or at risk of closure. The 340B discrimination harms the very people the program was designed to help, low-income and uninsured patients, particularly those in rural and underserved areas who rely on these providers for their care. Senate Bill 13 directly addresses these issues by prohibiting insurers and PBMs from discriminating against 340B providers. The bill ensures that these providers receive fair reimbursement for the medications they dispense, aligning their patients with those given to other similarly situated pharmacies. Senate Bill 13 will allow these essential healthcare providers to maintain the necessary resources to care for their patients and fulfill their mission of supporting underserved populations. Senate Bill 13 also addresses another significant issue in the healthcare system, white bagging. White bagging occurs when insurers require medications to be supplied through their own preferred specialty pharmacy, forcing patients to transport the medications to their healthcare provider. This practice creates numerous logistical challenges and can negatively impact the healthcare outcomes. At first glance, this may seem like a harmless policy, but the consequences can be severe. I've heard from several Missourians who rely on critical medications, often subject to white bagging, to maintain their health and independence. When these medications are delayed or unavailable, the physical and mental anguish these patients endure can be overwhelming. White bagging also leads to medication waste if a patient's treatment plan changes. If a treatment plan is altered and the medication is unused or only partially used, it must be discarded, even if the medication is unopened. Ultimately, this results in higher overall healthcare costs due to wasted medication, wasted time, and delayed care. Senate Bill 13 will protect both healthcare providers and patients by prohibiting insurers from pushing white bagging practices. It ensures the medications are administered by the patient's trusted healthcare provider, reducing the risk of errors and ensuring the treatment is timely and effective. Senate Bill 13 is an important step forward in safeguarding the integrity of the 340B program and protecting patient access to timely, accurate, and affordable health care. By ensuring the safety net hospitals and pharmacies receive fair reimbursement for 340B drugs by preventing discriminatory practices like white bagging. This bill will improve health care outcomes for Missourians, especially those who rely on safety net providers for their care. While we made some progress with last year's 340B legislation, it is clear that we still have much to do. It is important to note that 3/4 of what was in my bill was dropped in what was difficult in a difficult year to pass that legislation. I will try to answer any questions, but I know there are patients and experts in the room to deal with these practices on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. First witness in favor of the bill. Make sure you fill out, great, witness form. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Daniel Good. I'm an Eagle Scout from Springfield District 1.
Do you mind pushing on the mic there and just making sure it's on so everybody can hear you?
All right.
All right.
Daniel Good. I'm from Springfield District 134. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a pharmacist at Mercy. We have 3 tertiary care hospitals, 4 community hospitals, 6 critical care hospitals, and 38 pharmacies. When the insurance companies sign an agreement to have us care for their policyholder, they become one of our patients, and we want only the best for them. When the insurance company sends a patient to us as a provider, they don't get to choose which Band-Aid brand we use. They don't get to choose which artificial hip we use. They don't get to choose which heart stent we put in or which antibiotic. No, we choose the best product for the patient and trust into our care based on scrutinized patient safety and efficacy data. So why remove the patient safety focus, the long-earned expertise of physicians and pharmacists and nurses that have made those decisions? I assume it's safe to assume you all know what biosimilars are, right? Let me just do a quick primer there, right? Biosimilar is a fairly new class of medications. They're mostly human biologics that are fairly complex molecules that elicit a specific human biological response. You're familiar with brand name versus generic name, right? This is very similar, but in the brand name world, the generic world, those are the exact same molecule. So a generic is exactly the same as the brand name. In the biosimilar world, they have similar molecules, but they're not the exact same product, but they have a very similar response, a very similar therapeutic effect is what we call that. So similar to like Allegra and Xyzal, like 2 different chemicals, but they work on your seasonal allergy. Who gets to choose your seasonal allergy med? Who chooses it for your family? This is the interactive portion of the presentation. Is it you? Is it a commercial? Is it a friend? Or is it a pharmacist or a doctor that actually recommended it for you? I'm hoping that it's a doctor or pharmacist recommends it. This bill is going to ensure that the health systems and the Pharmacy and Therapeutic Committee make a choice in the best interest of the patients. Being forced to stock multiple therapeutic equivalent biosimilar drugs for the same treatment not only does not make financial sense, it does not make safe medication sense. Different biosimilars require different storage conditions, different administration techniques, different education for nurses and caregivers. All this variability is going to lead to potential medication errors, and we don't need that kind of medication error.
Sir, I'm going to have to cut you off for restriction of
All right.
time here, but
Thank you for your
thank you
time.
for your testimony. Next, in favor?
Well, if I can get in here.
We won't start the time until you start to talk.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, committee members. I am Karen White. I am the CEO of Missouri Highlands Healthcare. We are a federally qualified health center serving around 25,000 patients in 7 of the most rural counties in southern Missouri. As a federally qualified health center, we are a covered entity for the 340B program. Our history involves, over the last 10 years, the loss of 3 hospitals, leaving us as the only primary care provider in 3 of the 7 counties that we serve. That's a scary thought, right? Like, who wants to live in a county where you have no choice in health care? But that is the reality. And as the 340B program has continued to be attacked, first by the manufacturers, now by the PBMs, we continue to lose the savings we desperately need to be able to continue to provide the services that our patients have long depended upon us to provide. Services such as substance use disorder treatment delivered through our primary care locations, obstetrics and gynecology in an area long known to be a maternity desert. Without the 340B savings that we rely on, we will have to take a hard look at what services we can continue to provide. We've already had to do that over the course of the last year and a half. For my patients, I ask you to support Senate Bill 13. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Senator?
Just quickly, how many of your patients, or what percentage of your patients, are Medicaid patients?
I would estimate probably around 60%. Dental and obstetrics tend to be a little higher.
And then the
because
rest are private or self-pay?
some commercial insurance, yes, and then about 15% are self-pay that rely on the sliding fee discount that we offer as a federally qualified health center.
And Missouri Medicaid is negotiating directly with you, is that correct, on prescription costs?
We don't have a pharmacy. We rely on contract pharmacies.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Which is why I think it's so important that we ensure our contract pharmacies stay in business, especially in rural. We have very few big box pharmacies. Most of ours are independently owned mom and pops.
Thank you. Any other questions for the witness?
Thank
Seeing
you.
none, thank you for your testimony. Next, in favor of Senate Bill 13.
Good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. Mariah Hallbaugh, Director of Pharmacy with Citizens Memorial Hospital in Bolivar, Missouri. We're an 86-bed Soul Community Hospital just northwest of Springfield. The issues addressed in this bill are items I encounter on a daily basis in my role as director overseeing ambulatory and acute care operations at our hospital, as well as 340B compliance. Pharmacists in rural hospitals wear a lot of hats, and I can personally attest to the challenges my team faces with insurance-mandated white bagging, biosimilar coverage, and payer discrimination on 340B. White bagging is a practice where payers require a narrow network of pharmacies to supply the medication that is then mailed to the hospital. The hospital can't bill for that medication, but we bear all of the burden of caring for that patient for their infusion. We have to store that medication, coordinate delivery for that individual versus through our buying process. We have to prepare the infusion in special space to ensure it is sterile, that is very costly to maintain and keep our staff compliant in. And then we have to dispose of any waste. The white bagging model introduces multiple points of concern that delay care and introduce safety risks, and it is very confusing for our patients. You will hear arguments that it reduced costs, but we've seen multiple cases where shipment is lost or had to be wasted because it did not get stored properly upon arrival. The logistics of storing these patients' own medications is very challenging in a small rural hospital, and our hospital alone is up to 45 patients that we now have to coordinate this type of delivery method for. At CMH, we cannot ban the practice because our patients would go without therapy. There just isn't a way to make them find another facility and still get the care they need. Several of our patients have experienced increased symptoms due to these delays in care, and there's two here today that have very compelling stories as to why this is a patient care concern. We need legislative support to protect hospitals from this insurance-mandated program that disrupts care delivery and introduces unnecessary delays.
Thank you for your
time.
testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Make sure you fill out a witness form.
I will.
All right, thanks. Next, in favor of, begin when you're ready, yeah. Can you please do us a favor and speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify in front of all of you today. My name is Jody Gregg. I am a concerned patient from Fairplay, Missouri. I'm a mother, a wife, and a caretaker. I always get emotional, I'm sorry. I've experienced firsthand the impact of the poor insurance and PBM policies through our state employee insurance plan, which has now led me to being a recipient of the 340B program through my local hospital at CMH. Without the 340B program, I was forced off a treatment that was working for no reason other than the insurance and PBM decided that I could no longer receive it at the facility I was receiving it at, which was at MU. The insurance wanted to force upon me what is referred to white and brown bagging. This is where the medication, and for me, that was a biologic, which is like, biologics are not like a Tylenol, they're not like an antibiotic. They are a specialty medication that needs to be given consecutively at certain times without, you can't just switch them up. Like if one doesn't work for you, if the insurance says, hey, you can't take it, which is what happened with me, I you have to maintain a certain level or your body builds antibodies against the medication and then it's rendered useless. It no longer works. You don't go back to it. You're out of options once you have worked through these, and that's what's happened with me. You can't just switch them up due to it. They're not like antibiotics or other types of medicines. If one doesn't work, you can't just try a different medication like you would with an antibiotic or a blood pressure medicine. These are made different. They need controlled temps. They are based on weight, mixed and dosed on these weights, which can change drastically in patients like myself and others from one visit to the next. If you get there and your weight has changed and you can't take the medication that they have shipped to you, that medication is thrown away. You do not receive your treatment. You have to wait until a new dose is sent to you to receive your treatment. Therefore, you run the risk of developing antibodies. From one visit to next. Our insurance company originally would send a shot, which I could give myself through the insurance mandated pharmacy. I wasn't able to get this from my local pharmacy. I had to receive it from Express Scripts, Accredo, whoever the insurance company had. I wasn't allowed to go to the local pharmacy and just pick up this medication. It was shipped by the insurance pharmacy.
I'm going to interrupt you, but I want you to be able to answer questions if the other senators have questions. So just due to time, are there any questions for this witness? We want to make sure. Can you come up to my office? Would you
I have so much to say.
Okay.
Like,
And I can tell that.
it is. I went through anaphylactic reactions. I mean, because they forced me to switch these medications. I no longer can take them. If it wasn't for the 340B program, I would not have my life back. This is the only way that I am out here being able to work. My kid on Mother's Day, we went on a 10-mile bike ride. He's 10 years old. We've never done that. So much.
Can you set up a time for her to come up and we'll listen to her testimony? My staff here will ensure that we have that time, okay? Thank you for your testimony. Please make sure you fill out a witness form. Sorry. All right. Next, in favor?
So my name's Jordan, and as we discussed white bagging, like my sister and I wanted to share our experience because we've seen the ugly side of this practice. White bagging not only affected our dad, Matt Kintola, it also affected us. Our dad was amazing. He's the snake guy from Grand Gulf State Park, and as a naturalist, he taught many programs in schools, and he loved his job, talking and embarrassing us as much as possible, and he always encouraged us to follow our dreams and preaching, laughing at the little things. But when our dad was first diagnosed with cancer in his rectum, he was excited because it was caught early. It was like caught off let's check this off the box of the checklist, and it would have been taken care of quickly and simply. However, there were issues from the start, as stated in his oncology case file cover. We would already have started treatment had this patient not been covered by BCBS as their insurance. Often the oncologist will further adjust the dosage based on patient's performance status and/or lab work. If this order is dispensed by specialty pharmacy via white bagging, we will not be able to accommodate dosage adjustments the day of payment, thus delaying patient care. When I called and told the patient the process, he was very upset. He made the statement that his insurance company was just going to let him die while he waited to get treatment. And unfortunately, our dad was right. There's many delays he had to fight against the insurer and his designated company to deliver treatments. The odds of survival for patients with rectal cancer discovered only in their rectum is 90%. So we had high hopes that everything would turn out all right because it was caught so early. But the delays continued, and outlook went from, yay, we caught it early, to, sorry, not much you can do, just gotta sit back and watch. Suck it up, buttercup. And then our dad wrote a letter voicing his opinions on white bagging, and here's part of what he wrote. All these issues have taken their toll on me, and that was with my doctor's office helping. If they had not helped, the process would have been overwhelming, and I do not know how I would have gotten through it all. These issues are something a person battling cancer should not have to do with. I should have started my treatment shortly after the 19th of January, and that possibility could have had a big difference on my survival chances. The tumor I have is the faster growing variety. The possibility of the cancer spreading to other parts of my body has now increased due to the long wait time I have endured because of stressful and unnecessary administrative processes that I've had to deal with as a patient. It should not be this way. Waiting for over 4 weeks to start treatment has affected my mental health and stress levels because I'm a single parent of twin daughters. My health concern directly affects my mental state and how I deal with everyday issues along with future plans.
I'm sorry to interrupt you right there, but can you please come up again? And we will, if it's okay, we're going to we'll distribute your testimony and what you wanted to share with the members of the committee. All right? Thank you. Any questions for this witness? One, Senator, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your personal stories. I know this isn't easy, but really appreciate you coming and being part of the process.
Thank you. All right, next in favor? Okay, this will be the last testimony in favor, and then we'll go to those opposed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. I'm in favor of SB13. We need to cut the red tape. Protections for all Missourians, regardless of status, income, or health care, need to be Missouri's top priority. I believe in life and the sanctity of life, and we need to make sure that those protections are in place. Sharing the profits from big pharma versus people in need is a big issue in Missouri, and it needs to come to some type of agreement on both sides. Vitally needed medicine for good quality of life, sharing huge profits to ensure that Missourians who need the medicine and do not go without. Brown and white bagging just is uncalled for and is really jeopardizing Missouri's life, is interfering with families, and basically loss of life, and it really needs to be cured by state legislation and state law. There should be no discrimination when it comes to medication. There are needs out there, and I asked the State Senate Committee to come to some type of terms on this bill, SB13, and let's get it across the finish line and on the governor's desk. This is something that has been before the legislature for a number of years, all the way back to 2022, and it's about time that we address it head on. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Thank you. All right, we'll move to testimony against Senate Bill 13. Is there anyone here to testify against? Going, no, just kidding. Are we trying to be done right now? Okay, want to go first? Okay. Right. Whoops, sorry about that.
I just don't want to mess up all your papers.
No worries. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Again, Melody Schroer with the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, the National Trade Association for Pharmacy Benefit Managers. So first I want to say, and I'll dispense with my introductory remarks so that I can address a couple of issues. When we're talking about white bagging, there's nothing in that policy that interferes with the patient and doctor relationship. So the doctor would always be in charge of the treatment plan, the prescription, etc. The only thing that white bagging changes is the delivery mechanism. And actually, it oftentimes doesn't even have an extensive impact on that because they're both going to come. These are, in some cases, very complex biologics that you've already heard about, and they come from the same specialty pharmacy, and they're received at the hospital and again stored, etc. This is a payment issue, not a patient-doctor relationship issue. This is an issue of how that drug, which is often extremely expensive, is paid for. It could be paid for under buy and bill, which means the hospital buys it, they bill the health plan for that drug, or we do it under white bagging, which means it's then covered under your pharmacy benefit, and as such, it is a negotiated price that the client is aware of when they contract with that PBM and instruct them to enforce a white bagging program. So I just want to make sure that I've cleared that up. We're not interfering in any way. This policy does not in any way interfere with that patient-doctor relationship. The other thing that I want to make sure you're aware of in the bill is the biosimilar drug issue. So that particular section of the bill does actually allow for coverage of a biosimilar, much like a generic. So if you've got a brand name and there's a generic drug, we cover those today, and it's created an enormous amount of savings in the system. Biosimilars, which are, I even hesitate to name a drug, but an Emerald. There is maybe a biosimilar, and I'm not saying there is because that's one I can pronounce, Madam Chair. Those drugs are just able to be interchanged because of a thorough process the FDA has put in place. What this bill does is requires you to actually reimburse for that brand name drug at the same rate. So all of the savings that might be incurred by using that generic will be taken away because now you have to cover the brand or the original biosimilar at the same rate. It will be an extensive and expensive process.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the witness? See none?
Thank you.
Next.
Laurel Pickering, St. Louis Area Business Health Coalition, representing purchasing healthcare for 500,000 Missourians. And a few specifics on, 340B. I'm new to Missouri. This is my first session, and everyone is saying that there was a deal that was reached last year, so I think we're unclear on why this is coming back. But 340B clearly was a good idea in the beginning for safety net hospitals to serve the underserved, and should theoretically have nothing to do with commercial insurance and employer-sponsored healthcare, but it has grown to the point where it's actually distorting the commercial healthcare marketplace. While well-intentioned, it actually drives up the price of pharmaceuticals for employers because they lose discounts and they lose rebates when those drugs are purchased in the hospital setting. It also increases consolidation because hospitals want to buy up clinics that have access to 340B, and we know that increases costs. White bagging, we are absolutely in favor. I think you heard enough about why it doesn't disrupt the provider-patient relationship. Employers need the flexibility to work with specialty pharmacies to get these medications at a less expensive price. Biosimilars, we're in favor of biosimilars. They're obviously less expensive options and save employers quite a bit. We've seen this with generics, and they're clinically equivalent in many cases. So just in closing, the policies that we've talked about today really hinder employers' abilities to offer cost-effective healthcare, and we really urge you to consider solutions that reduce healthcare costs and not increase them.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, I do want to make a comment that in your previous testimony, we were talking about consolidation and how it helps in costs, and you just said consolidation increased costs in this test. So
consolidation, I'm trying to, broad networks increase costs, which I think was what I was saying. Consolidation of healthcare organizations increase costs as well.
So it just depends on whether.
So, yeah, the broader you make a network, the more it's going to cost. The more you consolidate healthcare organizations, the more it's going to cost.
So, again, your position hasn't changed. It's just vertical alignment, basically. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else testifying against the bill?
Madam Chairwoman, members, my name is Hampton Williams. I'm the General Counsel for the Missouri Insurance Coalition, and I'm here today just to voice my members' opposition to this bill, as well as SB45, which was heard previously. We've again provided a few experts that are here today that we'll try to make available for you. As we've already identified, this is a highly complex issue, and just for a little context, this is portions of this industry are regulated at the federal level. The employee plans or ERISA plans, while they're not state regulated, those are regulated at another level. The portions that this bill addresses specifically, every segment of it deals with essentially what is a contract right. And understand that as these PBMs are structured, they have agreements with manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, and the pharmacies, the distributors themselves. And when we are limiting or requiring provisions that mandate contractual relationships, that will have the effect of increasing costs. And as you go down this bill, particularly in the 340 section, every one of those is designed as some type of modifier on a contractual relationship. So, as we've heard today earlier, as we mandate that PBMs must work with all parties, costs will necessarily go up because they don't have the ability to sit and negotiate what set prices are. And it's similar with the biosimilars or mandating that there's coverage for the biosimilars project. One of the things that this legislation does is define cover of biosimilars as set by the USDA. And so now we've got a federal entity that has the ability to dictate what is and is not covered under these contracts. Thank you.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Make sure you fill out. Did you get a witness form?
So, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else opposed?
It's a bit tricky. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Nia Ray. I'm the State Government Affairs Director for the Cigna Group. The Cigna Group has specialty distribution services and a specialty pharmacy. We have some specific concerns with Senate Bill 13, the white bagging provisions primarily. We are members of PCMA and the Missouri Insurance Coalition. Many of our concerns have already been expressed and enumerated, so I won't repeat those, but I do look forward to meeting with you to share more of our concerns about the bill in the future.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Very succinct. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Next, in opposition.
Madam Chair, Shannon Cooper today representing America's Health Insurance Plan. That is the national trade organization of health insurance companies that provide insurance coverage through employers to millions of people across the United States. And here today to testify in opposition to this bill as well as the previous bill. It's unfortunate I didn't get an opportunity to come up here, but I'll keep my comments on this bill as we try to move forward. And I promise I'll come to each one of your offices and share my concerns. But there's a lot been said about a very confusing issue, and I can boil it down real simple for you. And if I could use props in a committee hearing, I'd pull a dollar bill out of my pocket, and I would say at the end of the day, it's about that dollar. And the struggle is employers who are doing the right thing across Missouri and doing their best to provide good health care coverage to their workers and people that want to get more out of those services. And right or wrong, that is the reality of this issue. And we use PBMs as employers. We fight issues like the 340B because at the end of the day, that increases the costs to the quality health care that we provide. And I hope you'll keep that in mind, that some of the folks that have testified today have pointed out that they represent close to 10% of the population of this state, where we struggle every day to try and provide good benefits. But when you meddle with legislation like this, when you break contract law, when you break agreements, that drives the cost of those services up for the ultimate consumer, which is the employer and their employees. And that does not benefit us whatsoever. We talk about how the state created their own PBM. There was nothing in legislation that prevents any of these independent pharmacies from doing the exact same thing. We have not been duped by the PBMs. We use them because they provide a savings for us. And I heard the buzzer. I'll stop by and visit with you, but we do not need your help when it comes to purchasing health insurance or making the best decisions for our employees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your time. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, do you have any more testifying against Senate Bill 13? Okay, this will be our last two. We'll conclude the hearing.
My name is Zach Dunn. I work with the Missouri and Kansas Labor's District Council. I really have two issues with the bill today. The first one is...
Sir, would you mind speaking into the mic? Sorry.
Oh. Lights on. Is that better?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Really have two issues with the bill today. The first one is there's a provision that allows pharmacists to decline to dispense medications to patients if they're not being reimbursed at equitable cost. I think creating policy that allows pharmacists to decline to fill prescriptions for our members or patients is just bad policy. So I want to just kind of cite that as one issue that we have when we look at the bill on behalf of our members. The second one is having to cover biosimilars. As testimony earlier stated, biosimilars can differentiate pretty steeply in price, and so having to cover a more expensive biosimilar when there's a cheaper one that might be available, it hurts our overall bottom line for the health fund. Once again, we want to avoid having to create those tough decisions when it comes to either increasing copays or deductibles for our members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? All right, seeing none.
Yeah, and Mark Dalton with Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council, also submitting a form for Jake Hummel with AFL-CIO. He had to run out to a very important meeting, but just echoing the same comments that Mr. Dunn just reiterated. And we had a lot of these discussions just 7 months ago about the same exact issue and the same bill, and look forward to the same conversations about why this is important to look at all of the people that will be affected by some of these unintended consequences. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for that witness? Sorry. See none. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. All those in favor?